turnout.
So, Jennie, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for helping us arrange to screen Paris is Burning. What's it like to revisit it after 25 years?
24. 24, 25, depending on which version you're talking about. It's great. I mean, I've seen it a few times. It's great that there are generations who've watched it. That's kind of unbelievable. I mean, when you make a film like this, I spent 7 years just trying to get the means to finish it, and then that people saw it was a little bit of a miracle, and then it has this life. So who knew? It's the Jewish Film Festival. I could say, who knew?
And, well, I always wonder if you kept in touch with any of the people in the film. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I mean, a lot of people have very sadly passed away. So Dorian, Pepper, Octavia, Angie, Kim, a lot of people, Willie, and that, it's really hard because it's kind of unbelievable. And Willie in 2006. So Willie and Dorian I really was closest to. I used to go to Dorian's house and sometimes play Scrabble, which, I come from a family of really mean, great Scrabble players that I can't even play with because they're so vicious. I can't. It makes me feel really dumb. And Dorian was like that too. So what's interesting is that I had not been in touch with. I saw Freddie a couple of years ago. Junior and I had been out of touch, and this year we did a benefit for the Eileen Ford Center, which is an organization here that provides services to homeless queer kids. And so we did a benefit screening at the DGA, raised quite a bit of money. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and it was really nice. And then this, just 2 weeks ago, we got an award from an organization called the Cinema Eye Honors, which is a documentary film organization. And Freddie and Junior were there. It's like a reunion with Jonathan, the editor. It was really sweet. Saul, the military guy, was going to come too, but he's a psychiatrist and he had to be at a psychiatrist convention. So, it was good. It's good to reconnect with those guys. But it's also sad, I think, for all of us to think of how many people should be here.
One of the things that's so remarkable about watching the film again after 25 years is looking at New York. And it really has become kind of a time capsule. Have you lived in New York over the 25 years? Yeah, so you've been here. I guess it's amazing to me that the world has changed so much and New York has changed so much, but it's still so recognizable. And I think the visuals that you've got in the film are just fantastic. Since you're here, I'd like to just ask you about the two other films that we're showing in your Guest Select series, and then we're going to open it up for questions. As I told the audience before, you chose Sophie's Choice and Dr. Strangelove. Can you talk about those two choices a little bit?
Well, I want to say that what I wanted to program was Sophie's Choice and Fanny and Alexander, because I'll just tell you since you're here. So Fanny and Alexander, how many of you have seen Fanny and Alexander? Okay, so you know who've seen it, and you don't know who haven't seen it. It's set in Sweden in, 1910 or something, 1920, and it has the most amazing, most of the people are Protestant, but there's this Jewish family and who help the kids who need to be rescued from their evil stepfather. And so basically they're really great as characters, and then there's this one mystical transgender Jew who's like their son, who channels this mystical experience for this boy to get revenge on his father, and I thought, that needs to be seen. But the distributor wouldn't let it come here because it had been played once the month before, because in New York City, they don't want it to be played twice in 2 venues within 3 months. Go figure. So, but go see it. You can see it. Sophie's Choice, because in the context of Jewish film, it's really hard to represent the Holocaust. It's just really hard to do it. And it's such a brilliant film because it it's about the sort of trauma afterwards, and through the eyes of an innocent American who's trying to understand. And it was directed by my uncle, Alan J. Pakula, who really was a mentor. I think my aunt is here somewhere. I won't ask her to stand up because she'd hate me if I did. But basically, you know, when you grow up with an uncle who's a really fine American director, brilliant American director, and a really nice guy, then you think, oh, nice guys are film directors, and anyone can be one. And so that's part of it, you know, that there's kind of a legacy. But also, I think, also Streep's first big role. Anyway, see it tomorrow night if you can, if you haven't. Always good to see it on the big screen. And then I thought if I was going to do a very serious film about the aftermath of World War II, then I had to program a very funny film about the aftermath of World War II. Although it's about the Cold War, it's sort of a comedy about the bomb and nuclear conflict and Nazis, you know, which is really hard to pull off. And, you know, Peter Sellers, a great Jewish actor, doing several roles at once. Come tomorrow if you can. I think it's going to be fun, the double feature with a serious World War II film and the ironic Cold War film, all together in one double feature.
Absolutely. Any questions from the audience? And I'll repeat them because I know it's hard to hear in the back. Yes?
Well, thank you for creating this film. It's wonderful. I have about 3,000 questions for you, but the one I would like to ask is, did you acknowledge any criticism of the film, particularly Bell Hooks criticism?
So the question is, first, thank you for making Paris is Burning. And this viewer has 3,000 questions, but to choose one, did you acknowledge any criticism of the film, in particular Bell Hooks?
Yes. I mean, I've done a lot of Q&As all through the years. And so obviously part of being a filmmaker is hearing criticism. Problem with Bell Hooks's piece is that it's transphobic, and so it's a little hard to take. I'm sorry everyone who doesn't want to hear about this, I'll just spend a minute. She starts her piece by talking about how she cross-dresses, you know, as she's a straight woman, and how she cross-dresses, and so it's a little bit, she didn't acknowledge that there was a queer Black and Latino response. She didn't acknowledge. She just basically saw it through a lens that didn't acknowledge that my executive producer was African American and never would have been shot, you know, without a Black man making a decision. So I felt like she portrayed it as if certain things weren't part of its history that really were. And so if someone makes a criticism in light, you know, there are many, and you know, any film can be criticized. I just didn't like the way she skewed it. I wish she had put some of those things in and made that criticism. But we could go on about that, and you'll ask the 2,999 questions later. But thank you.
Yes.
How does being Jewish, or since this is in the Jewish Film Festival, did that play a role in terms of forming your lens? Like, what maybe alighted you on this subgroup, and made you compassionate towards it?
What did being Jewish have anything to do with your filmmaking, with your making this film, with your finding this subgroup to document?
You know, I would have said 25 years ago no. But now I don't think so. Now I actually think that, although I was raised in a profoundly secular household, I think the way we valued literature, the way we valued civil rights, the way we valued African American culture, like my mom's a poet, and like Langston Hughes was like one of two poets I memorized, you know, when I was a little kid. So I would say profoundly, just in terms of the particular Jewish milieu I grew up in, being very educated and very much thinking about how other people live, and how literature in particular, but I would extend that to film, you know, helps people understand commonalities between people. So, and then later on I might say, you know, repairing the world and all that is something I thought about, not so much then, but now, but maybe that.
Yes, towards the back.
This is more of a technical question. I really enjoyed the loose camera work and the lighting, and I was wondering if that was a conscious choice or if that was part of the resources of an indie doc.
More of a technical question about the lighting. And the production, was it an artistic choice or made practical choice based on what was available?
Well, remember in 1987, when most of the film was shot, there was really no such thing as video, cameras available to anybody but TV crews, and those required heavy lighting. So you really had to make a documentary in 16 millimeter, and the stocks really required that you light. So the lighting wasn't something you could do without. So the question was, how did you light? And we tried to light expressively and add color and add really just to sort of reinforce the room we were in, but add a little atmosphere. What I was trying to get the DPs to do, and I think both of the main DPs did it really beautifully, and Paul Gibson, who was the main DP, did a beautiful job of it, is to get into the people with a camera so that you, the viewer, might imagine yourself with a different body, so that you might sort of feel like, what would it be like to be somebody else who wasn't me, or to be another gender that wasn't mine? So we tried to have the movement reflect that. I don't know, it's pretty abstract, but I think it actually works in some of the scenes. And to try and be too fixed didn't feel right for this film and the sort of kinetic way people speak and think and certainly move in the ballroom.
Yes.
I saw the movie maybe about 10 years late, and so by that time, I had my own assumptions about where some of the people in the film might be. And so it's very nice to hear that there are some of them still around and still active, still involved. I wanted to ask you about the two people who I found personally incredibly compelling in that film, and I think they were my age at the time who shot the film as two kids standing outside. Do you know anything about those two kids that I don't know?
The very, very compelling, I was going to ask you that too, the two kids who we see again at the end. Do you know anything about what happened to them?
I didn't know those kids, and I never really knew those kids because they were two random people who happened to be hanging out outside of a place called Sally's Hideaway, where Dorian entertained, right across from the New York Times building. And so they were randomly there, and I thought what the one kid said about how it's like when a group of people pray together, it was basically like my thesis. So I remember standing there going, he said exactly why I'm making this movie. And then I found out some years later that one of the kids was adopted by a dentist, and so had a better life than if he'd remained on the street. But I never, they weren't, like, there were people I got to know over time and knew, and I didn't know them. And they kind of came and went, but I was happy to hear that. It was Willie, I think, who told me that, so. Yes.
While you were filming, did you find any resistance from the community that you were shooting?
While you were filming, did you find any resistance from the community that you were shooting?
Definitely. I mean, not in general. I mean, there was one ball that people were like, you can't film here, you have to leave. And then later on people said it's because some of the walkers were going to be, strutting some stolen goods. Didn't want you, filming it. There were people who were into being filmed and then changed their minds. There wasn't a general, like, you should be here. There was a general welcome to me as I came in as a still photographer and spent 2 years getting to know people and then raised the money to shoot. Because, after all, these are events that are performative. So people who are performers and who were, these weren't like library carols, these were drag balls. So, you come in with a camera crew or a camera and say, I think this is great and I want to film it. People wanted that, but it's tricky because I wasn't really saying, I'm going to make you a star. I was 22 when I started and 29 when I finished, and shocked at 30 when the film had a big distribution. It just wasn't what happened. I mean, in your wildest dreams, you'd want it to happen. So I think there was after that a feeling of, oh, we didn't know this was going to be a big thing, and I understand that. I mean, that's reasonable. That wasn't planned. And I think many people felt really justified and happy about that. Like, well, look at our community. But other people felt, I think other people felt mixed, felt ambivalent.
Yes.
How did you get the interview with Eileen Ford, and did she know what she was being interviewed for?
How did you get the interview with Eileen Ford, and did she know what she was being interviewed for?
She had no clue. And in fact, if we had been nasty, the outtakes are not flattering, because she was like really controlling the camera, and she was like, you can't have the lights placed there, and you're walking in front of the lights, and she was really, whoa. But, you know, basically we said, we never lied. We said we're following this young, aspiring model. There actually was no need to say anything else. It wasn't, there was no need. And so we had WNYC TV that was producing the production, and so it was okay. They let us into Bloomingdale's. We felt pretty sneaky. I mean, we did, but I think it worked out. The thing is about Eileen Ford is that even though she had a sort of dragon lady aspect to the outtakes, I think what she says, that, girls are not different, everyone who's young has a hope and a dream, is true and beautiful and lovely. And so, I felt really good about that line and her position.
Yeah.
What turned you on to the scene initially, and then what drew you to make a film about it?
What turned you onto the scene initially, and then what drew you in to make a film about it?
Well, basically, I met some guys who were voguing in Washington Square Park, randomly. I studied photography as an undergraduate and kind of thought I was going to be a photographer, but I was interested in film. So I took this one film class in the summer at NYU, which is my entire film education, formally. But I met these guys and photographed them. And then they were like, oh, you want to see more of this? You should meet William Ninja and you should go to a ball. And I did go to a ball. It was actually at the community center on 13th Street. It was a mini ball. And I just had my mind blown. I was like, I don't know what gender people, I don't know who they are, I don't know what's going on. I gotta go to more of these. I went to more of them, and I took a lot of still photographs, and then I started to speak with people. And the more I spoke with people, and also saw the events, the more I thought, this isn't a still photography project. This is about story and movement. And really everything I was thinking about, seriously, that I cared about to think about at the time, like gender and race and class, and how we construct identity, and how certain people in America have opportunities, like all those things I thought about seemed to be encapsulated in the balls. It was all there, and so that's kind of what drove me, like a combination of the charisma of the people and how great it was to talk to people and people as talkers, but also like all the ideas that were just there. You didn't have to force them to be there, they were there. So when we edited it, Jonathan and I, it was this sort of battle of like, get the ideas in, get the characters in, we're telling stories. It's not a dissertation on race, class, gender, and the construction of identity, but I think we managed to slightly make it a dissertation on those things, while not selling, the beauty and splendor of the people short either. That's what we tried to do.
And what are you working on now?
So now I'm working on a wacky sort of essay film, memoir film called Earth Camp 1, and it's about how I lost 4 family members in 5 years. Don't try it at home. Plus, you're supposed to laugh when I say that. Thank you. And it's also about a hippie summer camp I went to in the 70s in Northern California. The connection being that when you're young, you often want to break away from your family, find different cultural markers, what happens when they leave you. So it's a first-person story, but it's also a kind of essay on impermanence and loss and how our culture views death. And so it's not unlike Paris is Burning in that it has ideas and characters and stories and maybe even a dance number. So hang out, and in a year or two, you'll get to see that.
That sounds great. Really looking forward to it. I think we'll wrap up, but thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you.